Howdy friends! Welcome to an episode of Reddit, I Do Work Here Lady. I've gotten a few requests for this subreddit, and since many of you enjoy the I Don't Work Here Lady stories, I thought I'd throw one of these in. I hope you stay for all the stories, and subscribe for future videos. It's pretty rude to yell at people that you don't know. It's even worse yelling at a supervisor that can end your fun. This story's titled, I Do Work Here, and Your Vacation is Over. Quite a few years ago, I worked as a ski school supervisor at a mountain resort. One day, early in the season, it's slow, so I decide to go take a run with one of my coworkers. Since I've been on my skis a lot, I opt to grab my snowboard for this particular jaunt. This is important later, so me and my buddy are out for a couple of runs, and it's time to head back in to check for lessons. We're down off the main mountain and just cruising along green, which is the easy run that leads back to the base area. Like I said, it's a slow day, so there's nobody around, or so I think. I'm making regular smooth turns on my board when, out of nowhere, I hear a woman from behind me screech. She's screaming, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" Before I can even flinch, I feel something hit the tail of my board. I get spun around and go down kind of hard. For a moment, the red rage light blinks in my head, but I think, okay, we're in a beginner area. She might not have had control, it was an accident. Be cool. I pull myself up from the snow and calm myself down. I look down the hill and there are two Karens standing about 50 yards downhill. Obviously, one of them was the one that hit me. Cool, they've stopped to make sure I'm okay and apologize. I slide down to them and open my mouth to check if they're okay. Before I can even get one word out of my mouth, Karen 1 starts screaming at me. She says, "What the fuck do you think you're doing? You could have killed me. You fucking snowboarders are a menace. You don't belong on the mountain." And on it goes, screaming at me, cursing at me, calling me all sorts of names. One important note, there is a set of rules that govern skiing, and one of them is that skiers and riders ahead of you have the right of way. Just like driving, if you hit someone from behind while you're skiing, you're 100% at fault. I try to interrupt politely to tell her this, but Karen is having none of it. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, fuck you, Karen. I'm tearing you a new asshole once you finish yelling. I look over at my buddy for backup, and suddenly, my rage-filled brain realizes something. My buddy is in full uniform. I look down, black pants, blue and gray jacket with the resort logo on the front and back, bright shiny gold name tag that says supervisor under my name, and a radio mic clipped to my collar. Yeah, I'm in full uniform too. At this point, I'm dumbfounded. Is this woman seriously screaming and cursing at two mountain employees after she just caused a crash? I get calm and hold out my hand for her to stop. I have no idea why, but Karen stops screaming. I reach up to the radio mic and call ski patrol. I ask them to have the patrol director on duty to meet me at the base area. It's at this point that it finally dawns on Karen that she's fucked up. She starts asking why I called patrol and what I'm gonna do. I just shrug. She starts saying that she doesn't want me following her and to leave her alone. Again, we're almost inside of the base. There's nowhere else to go other than to follow this trail down. She realizes she's stuck and skis down with her friend. Her friend at this point looks mortified, by the way. We get to the base and the patrol director is standing there with another patroller. I give a recap of the events, including some of the graphic things she told me to do to myself and multiple family members. The patrol director rolls his eyes, then pulls out wire cutters. Karen goes wide-eyed and is like, "No, you can't take my ticket. It's a 5-day ticket. We just got here today. This is our vacation." Tickets are over $75 per day, so we're talking like a $350 ticket that this lady has on. The patrol director just shrugs and says, "Well, ma'am, then you just made a very expensive mistake," and clips the ticket. At that point, my coworker and I beat the retreat back to the ski school because we want no part of the fallout. Sometimes, people can be so ignorant. This story's titled, Girls Don't Know Anything About Technology. Apparently, I was just there to look pretty. Not sure if this is the exact place for this, but going for it. For reference, I'm a 5'2" stick insect of a girl who was 22 at the time and also 6 months pregnant. I was working in a tech store. We sold computers, laptops, phones, music devices, Bluetooth speakers, cables, and so on. We also did lessons where people could sit with us for an hour and we would teach them how to use their devices. Generally, this was taken up by older people who weren't so tech knowledgeable. One day, there was no one in the store, so my coworkers decided to clear out loads of junk in the back room. Since I was pregnant and there was gonna be heavy lifting, they had me manning the floor. Since there was no one in the store, this basically meant that I was just floating about daydreaming until a guy comes in. The uniform was black jeans and a bright blue t-shirt with the store logo on the front and back, and a white lanyard with the store name and then worker's name on it. I was wearing this at the time. I go up to the guy and ask if he needs any help. He asks if there are any men available to help him. I tell him that while the other staff are in, they're currently busy in the back and will not be available to help customers for some time. I asked him what he wanted help with. He said, "Listen, honey, you're in a delicate condition right now. I wouldn't want to stress your pretty little head now, would I?" I calmly told him that I would be perfectly fine dealing with this issue, but if he wanted to wait for another 2 hours, another member of staff may be available then. He then smirks at me and then inquires about one of the laptops on show. He tells me that he wants a gaming computer. Not that you'd know anything about that, sweetheart. I then give my most jargon-filled speech about the laptop and point out that it's not at all suited for gaming, and if he wanted a laptop, he would be best picking another model. I point out the one best suited for this, give a jargon speech about that one too, and then smile as sweetly as I can at him and asks if he's still following. He seems aghast and actually gasps at me. I was trying so hard not to laugh at him. He asks me how I know all this stuff. I tell him that I've been gaming since I was 6 years old, build computers for fun, and have a PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and a laptop for gaming. I know my stuff, there's a reason that I was hired here. He says nothing for a moment, and then he says, "I guess girls in this shop aren't just to make it look nice, hey?" No sir, I'm one of the most knowledgeable workers in the store, aside from the manager. Then, he just walks out, and when he gets to the door, I hand him the leaflet that we have for the lessons. I said, "If you need anything else explained to you, I'd be happy to help you figure it out, sir." And off he went. I was so pissed that he actually had the gall to speak like that to anyone, let alone a very hormonal pregnant person. He genuinely seemed to think that I was only hired because of the laws of discrimination, where they had to have at least one female member of staff, and that I was therefore hired to attract male customers with my looks. I know sexism still exists, but I didn't expect to have it shoved in my face like that. This story's titled, "I Actually Work Here, My Shirt is Right Here, Covered in Your Son's Blood." So this story is from my first job as a soft play supervisor. I was 17 at the time. We all wore turquoise t-shirts, black jeans, and a dark gray cap. I routinely wore a vest underneath because kids are gross, and I almost always ended up covered in some kind of food or bodily fluid, which is important later. I was also a first aider for St. John's Ambulance at the time. On this particular Sunday, in the middle of summer, we were super quiet. I had just finished a rotation on the drop slide, locked it up, and was coming down the slide through the play area, the way we always did when management wasn't in. As I got my feet to the bottom, I hear a scream from the top. Without thinking, I shoved my shoes on and ran up the slide to the child screaming at the top. When I get there, I immediately shout for help from a colleague. At the top of the slide is a kid, maybe 3 or 4, whose nose is pouring with blood. I pull my work top off, knocking my cap off in the process, again, important later, and put it to the side of the kid to stop too much blood from getting on the play area. I then ask all the kids around if anyone knows where the kid's mommy or daddy are. One nods and goes down to get them. At this point, my colleague arrives with a first aid kit, and I throw the gloves on and start checking this kid over. No signs of head or neck injury, no signs of any other injury, so I turn the kid onto his side. Obviously throughout this, I'm talking to the kid, and ask my colleague to keep an eye on the time. The kid coughs a little and spits out some blood. My colleague asks if we should call an ambulance, so I ask her to ring 111, a UK thing where you can get advice, and they'll decide if you need an ambulance or not. Colleague goes down to get the phone for me. Just as the colleague leaves, the entitled mom arrives. She says, "What did you do to my son?" I replied, "Excuse me? Sorry, Take your hands off my baby." At this point, she snatches her child up and tips his head back. I said, "Sorry, I don't know what happened to him, but you should tip his head forward until his nose stops bleeding. We're calling 111. You, stay away. I think I know what's best for my child. How dare you?" "Ma'am, I'm the first aider. I'm not suggesting that you don't know what's best for your child. I'm telling you that you should tip his head forward to prevent the blood flowing into his mouth. I have to cover myself." Cover yourself? You're a child. What are you talking about? I actually work here. My shirt is right here, covered in your son's blood. The entitled mom now looks mortified and immediately tips her son's head forward over my already blood-soaked shirt. The colleague arrived back with my phone, and I called 111. They sent us to an ECP who checked him over and decided that he needed to go to the hospital to be checked over by a doctor. I got a new worktop, cleaned up that section of the play area, and I got to go home early. The ECP commended my first aid, and the next time I came to work, there was a box of chocolates and a card with an apology. If you like the stories, hit that thumbs up button and leave a comment, letting me know your thoughts. If you aren't subscribed, I'll show you what to do with this animation. Also, if you want to talk to me or submit stories, join my Discord server. See you guys in the next one.